Consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy. But America's agriculture landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertising campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. From the producers who make your food to the store where you buy the final product and everything in between. This is Real Ag. Many farmers often struggle to keep their operations afloat with their typical day-to-day crops and livestock, having to resort to other forms of crop or work to keep their operation alive. Whether it would be a job working in town or finding alternative crops or services, these producers are always looking for new and innovative ways to make some additional income. We will look at farm side hustles as we visit local farmers, as well as some former farmers who have turned their side hustle into their main form of income on this episode of Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
Alternative jobs, crops, and services are some of the main ways farmers use to keep their operations afloat. The need for affordable insurance or even just extra income is often necessary with most family farms. So why do many farmers feel the need to have a side hustle?
I think there have been side hustles for decades. Dad was farming and Mom had a job in town. Maybe she was a school teacher. That was a great arrangement because they had kids and somebody could keep an eye on those kids during the day and then get them home, and they got to be part of the farm op. That was my friends growing up. My mom worked in town and was part of one of the businesses that we owned. I think that has been the case for a number of years, and the drivers for that partially were what I identified about making sure that you had an idea where the kids were. The cost of health insurance is such a significant cost for farming operations today that if one spouse can have a job in town, that can bring insurance benefits to the family. That is a huge benefit. That's one of the draws at Servitech, is we offer insurance to the family here. So if we have somebody working in the labs or an agronomist and their spouse maybe is working on a family farm or whatever the case might be, they've got access to insurance because of one spouse's employment with Servitech, and that continues to be a really important factor.
I mean, farming has gotten harder and harder to make a profit, and I believe the statistic is like 80% of farms that have at least one person that works off farm to help supplement the farm. And whether it's done for insurance reasons or, just paycheck reasons, cash flow, it's extremely high and it has to be done.
With the high cost of inputs and the lower cost of pay at the end of the season, farmers got to have something that they can have some extra income with. It's getting pretty touch and go with the farming, and I'm seeing a lot more farmers finding an extra income outside of farming.
One thing when we talk about side hustles, or when we talk about where producers are generating the bulk of their income, a lot of farms out there today, the primary operator actually has an off-farm job. Now, we don't like to call that a hobby farm, that's not what it is, but just because of the risk management and how much financial capital it takes to operate agriculture today, they may work at a bank, they may work as an independent seed dealer. A lot of producers already have the farm equipment, the large tractors, etc., so maybe they have an earth or a dirt contracting business that they kind of do on the side. I think when we start talking about couples, a lot of times one member of the family works off the farm as a school teacher or a librarian. There really is no one thing that, the bulk of off-farm income comes from this sort of industry, but I think it's all of the above. And when you start talking about some truly rural counties out there that have less than 3,000 people, there's not too much industry. So maybe it's a welding or a fabrication shop. When you start getting into some of the larger metropolitan areas, and I can think around, South Central Kansas, AGCO is a great, manufacturer of agricultural equipment there in Heston. A lot of farmers do work for AGCO in Heston, but then nights, weekends, etc., they own, operate the farm or ranch kind of in that Butler, Harvey, McPherson, Reno County area. And there's tons and tons of stories. We could, pick on Southwest Kansas. We could pick on a lot of folks here in the Manhattan community that may work on campus in K-State, but then they do have a farm or a ranch that they go home to at night and on weekends.
We went through a period of time where side hustle, so to speak, maybe a job in town to supplement income was needed for a farmer producer to survive. And as we look today, we've gone through waves of difficult times that have changed the dynamics of farming. And while the heart and soul of Kansas agriculture still resides in a family farm, those farms are really, really large businesses. And so when the modern side hustle, rather than being as common as it used to be, going and looking for some alternative off-farm income, the modern side hustle, from my view, is those farming operations looking for ways within their operation to find more value, to market their own livestock, for example. Perhaps a beef farmer finds the opportunity to market their own beef directly from farm to table to a restaurant in a larger city, those types of things. It may be an example of someone raising sunflowers in northwest Kansas that then puts in a production plant to extract their own oil and market their own oil. It could be a side hustle of an operation that takes an alternative crop like industrial hemp and take some of those acres that are, it's a less known crop, there's uncertainties about it, but diversify in exchange for the opportunity to find new avenues. And so the modern side hustle is different, in my view, than the side hustles that we saw when I first left my family farm back in the 80s.
I think it's always good to have some diversity in your income. That's why we're trying to plant multiple crops, while we used to have livestock. And so I think with the popcorn, it's one thing that we can kind of set our own prices, and we're not quite as dependent on, are we on a trade dispute with China today, and all of a sudden we have countervailing duties on sorghum and the price goes down $1 in a day. So I think any way where a guy can diversify his income is a positive. When I came back, I sold seed on the side and then farmed as well. As we grew our operation, I was able to kind of slide out of that.
So Performance Crop Research, we've got our farm, our family farm, South Bend Industrial Hemp, and then we've got our trucking company, which, while they all are different hustles, they all work together to really provide a complete package for all of our companies. They help make things more seamless for us. You don't have to have all these pieces in order to be successful. We've just slowly made this come to life. The trucking company's been going for 10 years, but it fit within the hemp industry because now we need product hauled. We've been farming, and again, I was doing research, so it makes sense that I'm contracting on the farming acres that we're already using. So everything just really works together very nicely.
What I see evolving in agriculture, in Kansas and American agriculture, is that farmers and production agriculture is more in tune today with the consumer customer than they've ever been during my career. And what I mean by that is there's an awareness and an acknowledgement that consumers are looking for certain things. And so, and rather than argue with the consumer about it, let's help address what the consumer is looking for. A good example is that there's concern by consumers about the use of genetically engineered crops. Some people call them GMO crops. As one in agriculture, I don't personally have concerns at all about GMO crops. But for those consumers that do, then there's a side hustle includes, so to speak, recognition of that and that a market exists for a group of consumers to provide them those products. And so you see those kinds of things evolving out of awareness of consumer demand, that maybe I take a portion of my farm and I convert it to producing those non-genetically engineered, in some cases organically produced crops to help provide and satisfy that demand that some of our consumers want. And so I see those kinds of evolutions occurring, that I don't know that side hustle is the right word as much as it is recognizing and responding in new ways. And over my 34 years, in the beginning of my career, we were pretty set in our ways of doing the same thing. And we know we can't continue to do that. We've got to look for other opportunities.
I think those off-farm jobs remain prevalent. Where I think the side hustles of late are coming together, it's around things like agritourism. That might be hunting. That might be horseback riding. That might be the ability to come pick your own fruits and vegetables. You know, those sorts of experience-oriented activities are where I see more recent focus by farmers and ranchers to help them create and derive income from another stream of activities on that farm or ranch. And I think those will continue. I think the creativity around that is huge. I think COVID made folks who live in cities jealous of those of us who don't. I have regular calls with people in Boston and New York and LA, and men, they always want to know, well, what's it like there? What do you do? Well, you know, how we're handling COVID here is a little different. Separation isn't hard here because we're not in an apartment building, or we're not, you know, we have a different approach. And so I think that those opportunities will continue into the future, where we can create, you know, those niche opportunities for somebody to come out and experience what we take for granted every day.
One example of a side hustle that became one farmer's wife's full-time job was the Step Back in Time food market in Luray, Kansas. Created by Alice Hill to fill the need for a food market after the Luray grocery store closed and created a food desert in the area. Using the food she grows on her property, as well as the connections she has with other vendors and suppliers across the central Kansas area, the Step Back in Time food market has been a real blessing to the Luray area. So, what is the story behind the Step Back in Time food market?
My neighbor Krista Ulrich and we became friends after talking about chickens, and she owns a small limestone building that she runs her accounting office out of. And as we began talking about the need for local food production, we took an opportunity to take advantage of some of the COVID grant money that was available, and we converted part of her little building into the Step Back in Time food market. We've been open now since April of 2021. It has grown from very, very small, maybe 5 customers, up to we're serving about 30 families coming in now. And it's also amazingly proven to become a very social gathering. People will come before we're open, and they will stay until we close to visit, have coffee, and just be part of a community again. Well, my main goal is to help bring food back to our rural community. This is a town, Luray has no grocery store and has not had one for several years. I'm a passionate gardener, a passionate believer in the fact that all of Kansas used to feed itself, and now we are reliant upon many other sources for our food, and I'm trying to demonstrate that it can be done. My husband and I farmed and ranched for 40 years in northwest Kansas, Rawlins County. We were organic wheat growers. I grew an extensive garden, raised heritage pigs. We had our own chickens, eggs. I milked a cow. We had beef herd as well. Both my husband and I worked full-time in town. I became a registered nurse when my girls were very little. So I worked in the hospital setting, the nursing home setting, and then became the school nurse in Atwood. My husband worked full-time for Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas, And we did all of these things in order to keep our farm going. We decided to take an opportunity to get out of debt by selling our farm and ranch in 2015. It was the first time in 40 years that we had been completely debt-free. It was a big move for us. We essentially had to give up our entire livelihood in order to escape that debt load. We moved to Arkansas, Bull Shoals, Arkansas, thinking we'd just enjoy ourselves and have a good time. But we missed Kansas, we missed our daughters, and so we found a spot here that is halfway between our two daughters. Well, now I'm back to growing food. I saw the need in this area, and I thought this is a perfect opportunity for me to put my passion into practice. Try and reclaim our food security in a small town and to demonstrate that it is possible to do that. It's much, much smaller scale. It's a concept that says instead of getting big or get out, it's get small and stay in. I believe that we have an opportunity to show that small family farms, truly small family farms, can be a sustainable method of living in the country and doing what is very important to us, and that is feeding ourselves and feeding our neighbors high quality, healthful food. We've become what's considered an indoor farmers market, but we're open year round. We don't close in October like most of the farmers markets do. In order to do that, we work very hard to provide other non-fresh items, but that are Kansas-based, such as Papa Baldy's popcorn, local honey, St. Francis, the Wright Family Farms sunflower oil. We have beans, dry beans from Sharon Springs, 21st Century Bean Market. I drive to Marienthal, Kansas to pick up organic Kansas wheat, and we do a lot of baking during the winter months. We have eggs. We can sell frozen meat, such as beef and pork. We have had beef now for a year, and we will have pork starting this winter. What I'm hoping is that we will have food that's available all year round that is processed food, things that people can walk in, take home, pop in their microwave, put on the stove, heat in the oven, that is 100% locally produced ingredients. It could be branded with a local town's name or however you wanted to do it. But there again, we need micro-scaled processing systems in each of our small communities, or a hub that can process for local towns that allow us to be able to sell food that is fully ready to eat and meets all of the guidelines that KDA and Kansas Department of Health and Environment require us to have.
Starting out as fourth-generation farmers, the family of South Bend Industrial Hemp and Circle K Farms used their diverse backgrounds to create an industry that was lacking in Kansas. After starting to grow their first industrial hemp fields in 2019, they saw that there was no hemp processing near the location of Great Bend, Kansas. And rather than wait for someone else to create that facility, they took it upon themselves to build their own and supply it with product from their farms and other farms willing to grow the industrial hemp crop. What is the story behind South Bend Industrial Hemp?
You know, the industrial hemp operation is really, we're working for that to incorporate it into our farm and not be such a third wheel type operation. It's more fitted into where it's a rotational crop. We do have our processing facility for industrial hemp fiber that's been operational for right at a year now.
My husband and my brother-in-law and I, they're fourth-generation farmers. My background is crop research, and we came together and created South Bend Industrial Hemp. At that time, all we wanted to do was grow and sell it, just like any of our other commercial crops that we have on our farm. Long story short, our processors kept backing out. They kept flaking, ghosting, not getting funding, etc. And so we were really at a crossroads, and it was one of those things where we either needed to go all in and have a processing facility and be the captain of our own ship, or we needed to get out of the hemp industry. And we really believe in the industry, we believe in what its potential is, so we decided to open a processing facility.
You know, we do custom planting, custom harvesting. It utilizes our equipment, utilizes the expense of the bigger equipment to be able to get those cash jobs to do.
We have 24 farmers contracted this year, which is just shy of 2,000 acres. We don't have a minimum acreage that farmers have to work into. It's whatever they feel comfortable on their farm to mitigate their risk and to get into this new crop.
It's a full industry, and we push very hard and we advocate very hard for the industry. Certain times of the year, it gets the most attention. Sometimes farming, we've been really busy planting all of our crops for the last 30 days or 60 days, just goes in waves, time of year, what part of the crop, what stage it's in, what's important. Now that we're all planted, we're really just hoping we get some rain, which we've had really good rain, so irrigation won't be a huge thing, hopefully for a little bit. It just depends on what stage, of the growth we're in.
So out of 95% of the industries, we're the middleman. We're taking a round bale from the farmer, breaking it into its raw materials and getting it to the specs the manufacturers need to actually create their product.
The demand for processing the fiber and getting those products to manufacturers or to the end user for that herd or that hemp herd or that bass fiber is amazing. We would run it 24/7, like I said, if we could find the labor to be in there.
We've got the processing facility rocking and rolling. What we're doing is breaking down those raw materials, getting those out to manufacturers all over the world. It's been amazing to see these companies with this vision of a more sustainable product really coming to life with our assistance and with the acres that we're growing throughout the Midwest.
We're one of only few processing facilities in the United States. Very dedicated to the farming side of this crop and to developing genetics, developing ways to grow it, the right way to plant it, the way to, keep weed pressure down, to have a good crop that is successful. Put a lot of time and effort into it.
It should be inspiring, but it should be taken with caution. We didn't just decide to build a processing facility. We had the acres to support it. We had the farmers in this area saying, hey, we will grow for you if it's economical and it works for us. And so we had the background support because we're seeing a lot of processing facilities pop up across the country, but they don't have those acres to support them. And so you're going to be sitting with a machine that's not busy because they didn't do the back end work to make sure their facility is busy. So if you have a specialty crop and you really believe in the future of that market, just make sure you've got the supporting acres to make that happen.
We need way more acres than we have growing. We need way more volume and processing capabilities. We encourage and help anyone and everyone to get up and get going and to grow the industry.
The Baldwin family has been farming in Kansas since the 70s, and though they have mainly grown the traditional Kansas crops of wheat, corn, soybeans, and sorghum, they decided in the winter of 2016 to look for an alternative crop to grow. Popcorn was that chosen crop to take a chance on. They planted 5 acres in the spring of 2017 and in September harvested that crop. Since then, they have become a go-to premium popcorn product grown, harvested, packaged, and sold right out of McPherson, Kansas, and sold to loyal customers all across the United States. What is the story behind Papa Baldy's popcorn?
Commodity prices were not the greatest, corn prices were not the greatest, and Dwight had bought, like a 2-pound bag of popcorn that he was enjoying that he had paid about $5 for, which was less than what we were getting for a bushel of field corn at the time. And as a family, we were looking and had talked about, what are some other potential crops that we could add value, right, to the overall production and operation. Dwight, being Dwight, started doing a lot of research and talking to people and decided that we would try to grow some popcorn and see how that worked here in Kansas.
Our intention was never to build it into this kind of a business. We really thought what we were going to do was sell bulk popcorn to somebody. And when that fell through, we had to scramble because we had enough popcorn to last both of our families and our daughter's family for the rest of our lives, if we just in that one crop.
And so here we had a lot of popcorn and actually no place to go with it. So we popped it, we knew it was good. And so I started going around the stores and leaving samples, and pretty amazing how well people accepted it. And before long we were getting orders.
It was another way for us to diversify a little bit more here on our farm. With the popcorn, we were able to really control pricing instead of the traditional way a farmer would
market their corn. A lot of times you would just harvest it in your field, put it in the grain truck, and send the grain truck to the elevator, unload that grain truck, and be done with it. And you either stored it or you sold it right then and there. With our popcorn, we're able to store it here on our farm. We market it throughout the year. We have control on the pricing, and we've been able to make some really great connections with individuals as well.
When we first started, we were offering 32-ounce bags. Now we're offering 32, 20, 12-ounce bags, 15-pound bags. Throughout the holiday season, we offer some really fun holiday gift box options where we work with other local companies and businesses to create some fun gift box options. And then also, we've expanded to now selling stovetop poppers as well throughout the year. I think part of the growth has been making connections with people. People we hear time and time again that they like knowing where their food comes from, sharing our story with them and sharing the process of a crop's growth and just the overall process of where their food comes from, I think really appeals to a lot of people. That's, I think, a lot of how we've grown. The sky's the limit really with Papa Baldi's. As a family, we have to constantly have those conversations about next steps and how we want to see the business evolve. There's 3 generations that are involved, in Papa Baldi's, from Dwight and Cindy, so my in-laws, to my husband and myself, and then our kiddos who, help put the stickers on the back of the bags. I think it's become a nice opportunity for my in-laws who are, nearing or getting closer to retirement perhaps, to give them a fun reason to continue and be involved, in the farm should they choose to be. It gives our kids a really great sense of pride, knowing that, well, we're growing this on our farm and I put the stickers on these bags, and just that sense of pride. So I think we have a lot of opportunities. It's just a matter of, as a family, figuring out what our next steps are as Papa Baldi's continues on into the future.
Whether it's a unique crop or a labor of love, farmers across Kansas are always looking for new and creative ways to expand their farms to do more than usual. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Real Ag on Side Hustles. As always, you can check out this and other episodes of Real Ag on SmokyHillsPBS.org. From the producers at Smoky Hills PBS, this has been Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.